Be sure to subscribe for more content.
What is up, ladies and gents? Welcome to the BigBC Finance Channel, and I hope you're having a very lovely day today. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about Terra Classic USD, or USTC for short, and what has happened to it over the weekend and where I predict the price to go to in the near future, as well as some key price levels and some trades I'm looking to make. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. And of course, if you appreciate this daily analysis, then be sure to subscribe to this channel. So let's get into this one. So USTC, where have we been over the weekend? Well, as you can see over the weekend, we've had this lovely little pump happen here on USTC. Nothing too major when you compare it to how it was pumped previously, but nonetheless, if you were still holding USTC from the bottom there to the very top, then that would have been a nearly 12% trade. So congrats if you did manage to trade it at all during the weekend. And of course, at the moment, you can see the volatility of it is kind of declining. We're kind of consolidating. The pumps are getting smaller and smaller when you compare them side to side, for example. And of course, this is not, things are settling down here on USTC. And of course, it looks like history does repeat itself, because as you see these pumps like this, you see the price do some mega volatile price movements with a lot of volume. And of course, as the price does come down, you see less and less volatility and the price narrows over time. And that's exactly what we saw here as well, just before the 9th of October. Have a look at the price in this range here. There was no volatility whatsoever. There's no real trades, no real trading opportunities to be made on the short term here, just based on the volatility. It's a very, very low range here. You can see, the low here was around 2.9 cents and the very top here was around 3.2 cents. So very low volatility until we get to this region here where we saw the next pump. Now, why am I showing you that? Is because, as I say, history does tend to repeat itself. And of course, that's kind of what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the volatility become less and less. And we're seeing the price get closer and closer to the average price, which is this blue line here. Now, of course, we can draw some chart patterns, and we do see a support that looks like this. This is a support that I identified in my last video, and it still stands to this day. Of course, it's more reliable now as we've had several more tests. So as you can see, we've had 2 in this region here. We've had this test of the support there, and we've had 2 or 3 in this region here. So a very strong, reliable support that we have here, kind of holding the price of USTC up from this bottom here. And of course, from where USTC was at its low in the 9th of October, just before its mega pump, we are still sitting 26% above that. So, progress for the long term of USTC is being made. And of course, that is an uptrend, because as you see in this region, in August, for example, again, we were lower there by about 25%. So long-term progress is being made on USTC. We're still holding well above its low of October. And right now, we're quite close to the support. So one of the things that I always check for are chart patterns on this channel. And, the closest thing to a chart pattern that I see is a triangle forming that kind of looks like this. So, as I talked about the support being touched 6 times, for this resistance that we have here, that kind of makes it look like a triangle, we have 2 tests of this resistance. So not as reliable as this support here. I'd much rather depend on the support holding up than this resistance holding up. However, if we take it for what it is, a resistance being held up like this, then we do have a triangle. So this is one of the patterns that could be forming. Obviously, it would be really nice to see something like this, where the price comes up to test it a few more times like this before, we have a real reliable triangle forming here. But nonetheless, if we do see this, then this could be very exciting, because of course a triangle's price target is always the first test of support and resistance. And if that is the case, then in fact, let me just drag this to this one here, then we see a pump of nearly 28% if we do break out through this resistance here. And of course, if we break out at any point here, we can see a price target of 4.7 cents on USTC, which would be a very nice pump. And of course, just looking at its history, that is definitely not out of the question. USTC has had a history of having these kind of pumps pretty much everywhere throughout its inception since June this year. So, I'm definitely not ruling out a pump of 24-25% from this triangle like this. And of course, we could also see the price drop down like this as well. So triangle, the price could break out in both directions. It could be bullish, but it also could be bearish. The triangle doesn't state which one it is. It just states that there should be a large breakout if the triangle is respected. And of course, the downside to that is that we could see the price go down to 2.6 cents. And that's only if, we see the price test its support here, and then we finally lose it with a lot of momentum and volume, and the price starts doing something like that. So That's the downside to this. The bullish price target being around 4.7 cents and the bearish price target being around 2.6 cents there. Now, of course, the triangle formation is one of the main scenarios that I see. But another scenario that I also see happening is something where we just see the price lose all volatility whatsoever. And we just see a very slow but general decline here on the price. And of course, my thesis supporting this is, of course, these pumps are driven by news. So if we do not see any news here on USTC, for example, then there's going to be no new influx of volume or investors coming into USTC to pump the price up, kind of how it was back in the start of October there. And of course, another point supporting this is by just looking at history. So, there's been a lot of triangle formations here on USTC. We can pinpoint one such as this one, for example. So, there's been several triangle formations in this area. You can see a fairly clear one here, for example, and of course with this came a breakout to the downside. So we see this massive price action to the downside. We see an increase in volume. So in this instance, for example, we saw a breakout to the downside, and of course price target first test of support and resistance, which looks something like this, and we see that that was reached basically in this region here at its very low before this massive pump that we saw there. So that's one triangle where a breakout to the downside was successful. If I just show you more triangles in the past, let me see where another good one is. Again, we see a triangle formation that looks like this. This looks like the price target was reached on the downside once again. We see a massive triangle forming there. And of course, we see this downwards action afterwards as well. If I show you a triangle here, for example, where you see that the price does marry up several times for that support there, and twice for the resistance this time. So a similar scenario to what we have right now on USTC. So this was back at the end of July, start of August. We see the price does break down below, but because there's such little volatility on this USTC crypto, we just see the price kind of really not do too much. It's kind of just staying at a very small level and very gradually declining. It's kind of speeding up towards mid-August there, but generally it's not a breakout from a triangle. Instead, we just see the price not really respect the triangle and continue on in this direction with very little momentum. And that's why I think we could see something similar in this region here, because of how history has treated triangles in the past. Sometimes they are respected, and that's why I think this breakout to 4.7 cents or down to 2.6 cents has some credit. But at the same time, we've seen triangles that are not respected, where the price kind of just slips through. In that previous example I showed you, it kind of did something like this, where it broke out a little bit from the triangle, but then just stayed in a path that looked like that. So that's why I think, from this triangle, we could see the price just continue on with very little volatility like this. So of course, if it does this, then there's not really anything tradable about that. There's not really many profits to be had in either a bullish or bearish direction. And I would expect the price to decline gradually over time until we see news or something that pumps USTC to a point where it was like it was back in the start of October. So kind of what I expect if we do not break out of that triangle there. But of course, if we do see a breakout from this triangle and we see a massive increase in volume, maybe we see some good news or some bad news come out about USTC, that could very well coincide with this triangle formation that we have here, and we can see that subsequent pump that I did talk about. So that's really what I'm keeping my eye on here on USTC. Pretty exciting if we do see something like that. Of course, if we can test this resistance a few more times, like I say, get the price touching that a few more times, make it a little bit more reliable of a resistance, then to me that would be fairly exciting, because I would say that we're seeing a much more reliable triangle formation that could have a better chance of being respected and seeing a subsequent price action that we can definitely trade on and make some profits from. So that's all I'm seeing here on USTC. Let me know in the comments if you think I've missed anything technically about USTC, or if I've missed any news that could be bullish or bearish for USTC. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching and have a very lovely day.